Hello everyone, I'm very happy to see you today. This talk will be an introduction to microcontrollers, how you can program on microcontrollers, and eventually how you can connect a microcontroller to the Google Cloud Platform. I just have a very simple and raising question first, so I can know you better and I can adapt my speech today. Among you, can you please raise your hand if you have already written some code for a microcontroller? So if you have done a Hello World on an Arduino or something, so very few people have already written for microcontroller, so we will really do an introduction from the beginning. Okay, so a microcontroller is a prototyping platform located on an integrated circuit board. So for instance, this is an Arduino Nano. So you are maybe familiar with the term Arduino. Arduino is one of the most famous prototyping platforms, and it's actually composed of this black part here, which is the microcontroller unit. So this black part, the microcontroller, is like a computer inside an integrated circuit board. So this microcontroller contains a CPU, some memories, read-only memory and random access memory, and it also contains some interfaces to connect output peripherals, input-output interfaces. So actually, this is the Arduino Nano. The Arduino Nano is composed of this black part, which is a microcontroller. This is the Atmega 328. It's a microcontroller, very, very slow. It's like 16 megahertz, so very, very slow, and 2 KB of RAM. So it's like very, very slow, not powerful, but very power efficient. So this is the microcontroller, and the blue board that is underneath is actually a prototyping platform. Why we have a blue board? It's actually connected to the microcontroller, and it helps you to connect to USB, for instance, to connect your microcontroller to USB, and it also provides some input-output interfaces through those pins. So through those pins, you can connect to, for instance, sensors or actuators or something. This is the Arduino Nano. It's the most famous prototyping platform, but it's very slow, as I told you. Hopefully, later, Chinese people came and they created the ESP8266. This is much better. So this is also a microcontroller. Again, the microcontroller is the black part here, all this part, and the blue board that is underneath is a prototyping platform to have access to USB again and serial or GPIOs wires. Okay, why this microcontroller, the ESP8266, is better than the Arduino? First, because you can see here that it contains an antenna. Because you can connect this microcontroller as a Wi-Fi stack integrated, which means you can write code for this that connects to your own servers, for instance, locally or in the cloud. And another reason why it's good is because from the 16 megahertz, we have now 80 megahertz, so it's much faster, and we have 64 KB of RAM. If you want to buy something like that, so you can see it's very, very small. If you want to buy something like that, it's actually very cheap. You can buy it for like this price, like 100 rubles, so plus shipping fee. So you can see it's affordable, and it's really good because now for like something that is cheap compared to a computer, we have a prototyping platform where we can write code for that. And we can just have fun, and we can connect it to the internet, and we can just have fun. But you know, the Chinese people, they didn't stop here, because this ESP8266 is good, but they created one which is better. It's this one, which is the ESP32. So this one is a 240 megahertz. So it's like a very expensive computer from the 90s. It has like 520 KB of RAM. And you may not see very clearly here, but it also features an antenna here, which is both for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So you can write code here that, for this microcontroller that connects to Bluetooth stack or Wi-Fi or both. And it also features cryptographic hardware acceleration inside. So there is a specific hardware inside to facilitate and accelerate cryptography. Okay. Today we will develop code on this platform, the ESP32. And again, if you want to buy one, on internet. It's a little more expensive, but it's still affordable. When you can see, like you have like a powerful microcontroller with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth stack and encryption for this price, free shipping. So it's like very, very nice. Okay, you have various ways to program on a microcontroller. You can use lots of different languages. You can use C or C++ using the official integrated development framework, the ESP-IDF. It's really good this if you want if you want to have access to your memory and if you want to have access to your threads and everything. It's really low level. It's C, C++, you know it. So you can really control it very, very low level and it's quite good. You can program using Arduino C. Arduino C is a language between C and Java. It's like a higher level C. It's like a C where you don't have to manage memory, you don't have to malloc or stuff like that. You can just concatenate strings. So it's like a higher level C. You can, of course, use Python, JavaScript, Lua. You can use Golang. You can use many different languages if you the one you prefer. Today we will use Arduino C because Arduino C is really easy to get started. It may not be the best programming language or the most efficient one, but it's the best one to get started. So we will use this one. And where, like every development, you need an IDE. You can use a text editor if you want, but you can use an IDE. You can use the official Arduino IDE to program on microcontrollers, or you can use Platform.io, which is an extension for Visual Studio Code. Platform.io is much better because it has dependency management. You can just add breakpoints and stuff, but it's a little more complicated to use. So to get started, we will use Arduino IDE. So the Arduino IDE was initially made for the Arduino microcontroller, but you can connect many different microcontrollers because it's extensible to many different microcontrollers. So the first thing you have to do, you just file new project, and when you click on file new project, it will generate this file. This file, you can see you have two methods. You have a setup method and a loop method. This is the Arduino contract. So you have to override to implement those methods. If you're familiar with C, it's like, let's say, you have a void main function. Your setup call is called at the beginning. It's usually to initialize component. And in a while true loop, you have your loop method. So the Arduino will actually do that. It will, Arduino IDE will actually do that. It will first call setup once to initialize component, and then it will call loop over and over. So what we will do today is we will just do a very simple hello world. So first thing first, we have to initialize the USB interface. So the USB serial line. So to initialize it, you just have to call serial.begin at 9600 baud, but it's an implementation detail. And in your loop method, you will do serial.println hello Vladivostok. And of course, we will add a delay because we don't want to print like too fast. We will delay 1000 milliseconds, so 1 second. So it should display hello Vladivostok every second. So I will connect my microcontroller to my computer over USB. So you can see it's connected, and then you will click on here the upload button to just compile the sketch. So this is called a sketch, this part. It will compile your program, and it will flash it to the microcontroller platform. So I just click on the button, it starts to connect, and now it flashes the program into the microcontroller platform. You can accelerate the flash, but I just did like that. And now if you click on the serial monitor, yeah, you should be able to see hello Vladivostok every second. So you can see how easy it is to just do a hello world on a microcontroller. You just have to initialize the serial interface, the USB interface, and you just print ln to print the message you want. Okay. Of course, we just don't want to do only a hello world. What we would like to do is connect this microcontroller to a sensor, like for instance to get the current temperature or humidity level. So you can buy just a very simple sensor. This is a BME280. It's a temperature and humidity sensor. And you can see it has various ways to connect to microcontroller platforms. So here it's written ground, and VCC is for the power. And then you have SDA and SDA for data and SCL for the clock. So we will use what's called the I2C. It's like a standard in electronics to connect stuff. So when you see this, you may ask yourself how you connect it to your microcontroller platform. So what you usually do is you download a cheat sheet. It's like a wiring diagram telling you about your microcontroller and where you should connect stuff. So here it's written that if I want to connect the power, it should be here, in the ground, and 3.3 volt. And if I want some data from I2C, it should be plugged to the GPIO 21, and if I want SCL, it should be in the GPIO 22. So it's like that. You just have to respect that contract. So you bought a peripheral that tells you, okay, it has a SCL line, so you know the SCL line you will connect here, and it has a SDA line, so you will connect here. To save us some time, I already did the wiring for us. But actually, you can use a tool called Freezing. Freezing is a tool to help you have sketches for your IoT platforms. So here you just drag and drop. So I drag and drop my microcontroller platform here. I drag and dropped my BME280. And then you can see that the VCC line is connected to the 3.3 volt. The ground line is connected to GND. And as we show on the diagram before, SCL is connected to GPIO 22, and SDA is connected to GPIO 21. You don't have to think a lot. It's like that. If you're not familiar and you bought a microcontroller and you don't know how to connect it, you can just, for instance, write the name of your sensor and the microcontroller, and you will have a diagram telling you how you can plug it. So it's like Lego after all. You can just have to follow the diagram and connect it. Okay, so now in your Arduino IDE, you have like a dependency manager, so you can just include library, and here we will include a library to connect to our sensor, which is called the BME280. So what you usually do is you go to the library manager, here you write BME280, and then you will have to download the library. So here I already downloaded it, and a good thing with the Arduino IDE is that it provides you some examples on how to use the libraries. So here I already have an example telling me how I can use my sensor. So here it tells me that first you need an import, like you include the library. You need an instance of your component. So here we have an instance, we name it BME. And then we need to, in the setup method, to initialize the instance. So here we just have to call BME.begin to initialize the sensor, and if it fails, we will just write a message. And in the loop method, this time we will not write a hello world, but we will get the temperature. Temperature is like calling BME.readTemperature, just like that. And humidity, BME.readHumidity. So we will need all these lines. I close this. I will save it, and then I will try to flash it. So once again, we have our include library. We include the library. We have an instance of our component. We try to initialize it, and then we will call BME.readTemperature to get the current temperature, and BME.readHumidity to have the current humidity level. So you can see how easy it is to get the current temperature and humidity. It's like one line for the temperature, one line for the setup call, and of course you have to import your library. Okay, so it's flashing now. And if we click here on the serial monitor interface, you can see that we have every second now the temperature and humidity as it was written in the code. So right now it's like 24 degrees, so it's okay. And of course, if I press on the microcontroller, it's it raises the temperature. Okay, so you can see how easy it is to get started with a microcontroller platform. Of course, we don't want just to have the current temperature locally. Remember, this microcontroller has an antenna to connect to the Wi-Fi. So what we would like to do is send the temperature to the internet. So you can send the temperature to the internet in the way you want. You can use any protocol you want. You can use HTTP, for instance. You can use MQTT, which is a lightweight protocol for the Internet of Things to send messages. And of course, you can send data to the internet to which server you like. So if you want to send data from the current temperature data to a Raspberry Pi in your home, you can just host a Dockerized server, for instance. And here you can just send HTTP request to send the temperature to your Raspberry Pi. What we want to do is we want a secure and scalable solution. So we will connect this microcontroller to the Google Cloud Platform because it will help us having a very secure solution. Connecting the microcontroller to the cloud will be secure. We don't have to deal with that. And it's scalable because if we want to have like 1 million of microcontrollers, we will need more power server side, and we can scale very easily with the Google Cloud Platform. So Google Cloud Platform offers a service called Cloud IoT Core. Cloud IoT Core is a way to connect any kind of devices to the Google Cloud Platform. So you have various ways to connect a device to the Google Cloud Platform. For instance, you can use PubSub, so you have to use a PubSub library on a device and then use that library or a Google Cloud library to send data to the Google Cloud Platform. But it's not very standard because you have to use a specific library made by Google. Cloud IoT Core is really good because it uses internet standards to connect any kind of devices to the internet. So how it works, it actually provides an HTTP gateway and an MQTT gateway. HTTP, you may are familiar with that, is to send HTTP GET or POST request, for instance. And MQTT is very lightweight. It's like for a microcontroller to send small messages. It's like a very lightweight version of PubSub or RabbitMQ, if you're familiar with that. You know, it's publish, subscribe way of doing stuff. So Cloud IoT Core specifies gateways to connect devices to the internet. How it works? First, it's secure by design, so you have to generate some keys. You generate some RSA or elliptic curved asymmetrical keys. So here you can just use OpenSSL to generate a private key and to generate a public key. This is an implementation detail of OpenSSL. So we just generate some keys. Okay, we have a public key and a private key. Now we go to the Google Cloud console. We will go to the Cloud IoT Core port here, and we select. So our project, my project is named IoT Core Project. This is my Google Cloud project, and we select a registry. A registry here, my registry is named IoT Core Registry. A registry is like a bucket of devices. If you want to make a commercial product of temperature sensors, you can create a temperature sensor registry, and all your devices will be in that bucket, in that registry. So now we go to device, we create a device in that registry to register our microcontroller to the Google Cloud Platform. So we will name our device ESP32. We will use elliptic curve asymmetrical keys. So we will need our public key we just generate right now. So I just copy-paste my public key. I specify its elliptic curve. I have a device named ESP32. I create, and now my device is registered to the Google Cloud Platform. So it's secure because Google Cloud Platform is aware of the public certificate, and if the microcontroller sends data using the private certificates, it will match the key, and it will know that the microcontroller is actually the actual one and not a fake one. So we will first call Cloud IoT Core using a computer to see if it works or not. Cloud IoT Core uses JSON Web Token, JWT, which is another standard of the internet for the authentication. A JSON Web Token is a token in a JSON format where you specified when it was issued and when it will expire. For instance, here my token will expire in 60 minutes, and then it has to be renewed. And you specify your Google Cloud Project ID. Then you take this JSON token, you sign it using your private key, and it will generate a JSON Web Token. So I use Python to generate a JSON Web Token, but you can use whatever your language you like. And then we will use the HTTP bridge. So first we specify our JSON Web Token. We will just have a message called Hello Vladivostok. We sign it to base64. We specify our Google Cloud Project ID, the region, the registry name, remember it was IoT Core registry, and your device name. And then to send data to the Google Cloud Platform, it's as easy as doing an HTTP post request, specifying your JSON WT in the authorization header, and you send your base64 data in the post request. So here I use curl, which is an HTTP client on my computer, but I can use any HTTP client I want. And you have to send a post request to this gateway. So cloudiotdevice.googleapis.com / your Google Cloud Project ID, your region, the registry, and the device. And then when you start to call the actual curl method, it will give you a JSON back. So here I have my JSON, and if I query Google Cloud PubSub using Google Cloud PubSub and I pull my subscription, I should be able to see my message from Google Cloud PubSub. So what happened is I just created from my computer an HTTP post request, and Google Cloud IoT Core is a gateway that uses internet standards to take that message it receives and forward it to the Google Cloud Platform. So here it forwards messages to Google Cloud PubSub, which is a service from Google Cloud. So if I query PubSub, I can see that I have successfully sent a message to the Google Cloud Platform. So if you want to see again the implementation, if you want to send a message to Google Cloud Platform, you need a JSON Web Token, and you just have to do a simple post request to a URL. And as simple as that, just doing a simple post request with a JWT, you can send message to Cloud IoT Core. So you can send message from a microcontroller platform, but also from a computer, from any devices you want. If you want to use the MQTT bridge, it's similar. You need a JSON Web Token. You specify your Google Cloud information, and then you can use an MQTT client. Here I use Mosquito on a computer, but you can use whatever you want. And I just send message to mqtt.googleapis.com to this project specifying my JSON Web Token, and it will send data to the Google Cloud Platform. So you can see how easy it is. Now we don't want to send data from our computer. We want to send data from our microcontroller platform. So we will just open the Arduino IDE, and we will again use the Arduino IDE to create some code for the Arduino to connect to the Google Cloud Platform. So I just open a pre-existing written project. I just compile it because it will take time to compile, and then we will see the implementation. So I should not forget that I need to specify my private key. Okay, so this is my private key. I will specify it in the Arduino code. I compile it, and now we will see the implementation. So how you connect a microcontroller to the Google Platform. Once again, you can import a library. You have a library called IoT Core JWT, something like that. So if you write Cloud IoT Core, you should be able to find it. Yeah, Google Cloud IoT Core JWT. So you have to install that library. Then once again, you click on File Examples. You find a sample code telling you how you can use that library. And you can see that it has already written some code for you. What you have to do again, you need an import. So in the project we saw earlier, remember we had this import for the sensor. Now we have an import for the MQTT client. Then in the setup method, we will just need to call this method setup Cloud IoT. What it will do actually, we can see the implementation. It will create a device using your Google Cloud Project ID. And then it will set up the Wi-Fi on the microcontroller. And finally, it will set up an MQTT client to send messages to Cloud IoT Core. So, but the code is already written for you. What you only have to do is just call that method. So set up Cloud IoT. So it's exactly what I did. Remember earlier we created that code. Now we just add set up Cloud IoT. So it will connect the microcontroller to the internet and to the Cloud IoT Core. And then in the loop method, we just have to have this boilerplate, which is to persist the MQTT connection with the microcontroller. And if the microcontroller is not connected to MQTT, it just calls the connect method. And then every 5 seconds, we will take, remember the BME.read temperature and BME.read humidity, we will just parse it into a JSON, so it will be easier to parse it later in web services. And we print it to the serial interface. And also, we call publish telemetry. So this method will actually call the MQTT client to send a message. So again, if you want from a microcontroller platform to send message to the Google Cloud platform, you need one import, you need a setup call, you need some code to connect to the MQTT client, and then every time you want to send a message, you just have to call publish telemetry. So just that line. And if we see the serial monitor line, normally every 5 seconds it should be able to send a message to the Google Cloud platform. So I reset my Arduino. Okay. Let's try again.
I think you used 2 bytes in your private key.
Oh, the actual first 2 bytes. Yeah, it's on purpose.
1 byte, the first 2 zeros.
Yeah, actually, you notice very well. The first 2 zeros are not mandatory because it's just anti-data. OpenSSL formats it like that. But you're right, it could have completely been that. So we will just again open the Arduino IDE. That's interesting. I feel like my microcontroller is like I will change another microcontroller just to check. Let's do a hot swap. Okay, let's try to flash it again. Actually, I'm not sure about what I did, but I feel like I clicked on 2 different IDE on the upload button. So I feel like there was a conflict between 2 uploads at the same time, and it didn't flash the firmware properly. So let's do it only with one IDE. So this should be okay. This is okay. So let's try again. It compiles the sketch. It's actually a little slow, but everything should be here. So you have your import. You have your import for the sensor. This is not very important. Okay, let's connect it. It flashes again. and we will see. So in the setup method, we read again the code. We initialize the serial interface, we initialize our sensor, we initialize the Wi-Fi and Cloud IoT Core, we keep the MQTT connection, and we send a message. So it should work. It should completely work.
It's okay.
We have three strings.
Yeah.
2 zeros. When you got it, you missed 2 zeros.
It's actually normal. It's like optional because OpenSSL created 0 at the beginning, but you actually, I got you.
Zeros,
Yeah, it's those 2 zeros. You have to skip those. It's just, but it's a very good point. It could have been that. So okay, it was just like I flashed it 2 at the same time, and it was a flashing issue because you remember I had my 2 Arduinos at the same time, and I click on flash on the 2 button, so it like flashed the firmware simultaneously. So you can see now it works, and it sends the temperature and humidity every 5 seconds. And what's good is that now our microcontroller is connected to the Google Cloud platform. So what we could do is we could, for instance, create a Firebase Cloud function that listens to Google Cloud PubSub and then persist that data into Firebase, for instance. So we will it's what I did actually. We can just see Firebase Cloud Firestore, which is like a NoSQL database. And you can see here that I have events every 5 seconds. So my microcontroller is sending data to Google Firebase Cloud Firestore. So if you are curious about the implementation detail, we can just see the Firebase Cloud function that I wrote. But it's very simple. You just have to create a Cloud function that listens to a PubSub topic, so it subscribes to data from Google Cloud PubSub, and every time it receives a message from PubSub, you take the JSON. So the JSON message here, because remember I send the message in a JSON format, you just pass the JSON to get the temperature and humidity, and you call the Firebase Cloud function, the Firebase function API to persist into Firebase. So here you just, your document, devices, ESP32, events, your event ID, you persist the temperature and humidity. So here I created a Cloud function, and you can see that my data, it's sent from this microcontroller to the Google Cloud Platform using MQTT, and then in the Google Cloud Platform, it's forwarded to Google Cloud PubSub. I have a Cloud function that takes the message from PubSub and persists it into Firebase Cloud Firestore. So since data is in Firebase, you can, for instance, use Firebase hosting. Firebase hosting lets you host static pages in the internet. So I just created a very simple static website with the Plotly library to see the current temperature from a static website. So now I can be able to see a message from my microcontroller temperature. So you can see microcontroller is sending data to PubSub, and then it's directed to Firebase, and it works. But you can actually do more than that. There is something that I like a lot. I often go to Instagram, and I see a lot of beautiful people taking pictures all the time and with filters and telling, hey, I'm in the beach, you can see the temperature. So why can't you do that? Since your microcontroller is sending data to the cloud, so you can, for instance, buy some South Korean glasses, and then you can just take those glasses and take the temperature from the microcontroller. Yeah, it sends it to a Cloud IoT Core. Then you have a Cloud function that listens to PubSub, save it to Firebase. Firebase, you can just connect it to your Android phone, for instance, and using Bluetooth, you can connect to your glasses. So you can do that if you want. That's actually cool. Let's try to raise the temperature. Okay, it works. You can see it works in real time. But you know, Cloud IoT Core is good to connect any devices. You can connect. Earlier we connected our computer using curl. Then we connected a microcontroller, but you can also connect devices to Cloud IoT Core. So I was thinking, since you can connect devices to the Cloud IoT Core, why can't you connect your own body? Because you know we are humans, and humans, we are like machines after all. We just have some humanity, but we are machines. So why can't we try to connect our own body to the Google Cloud Platform using Cloud IoT Core? So it's what I tried to do. So in Google Cloud Platform, what I actually did is I use Kubernetes to host some services. So in Google Cloud Kubernetes, I hosted a Grafana. You may, if you have some DevOps in your companies, they use Grafanas to have some graphics about like the monitoring of the infrastructure. And I deployed on Kubernetes InfluxDB, which is a time series database. So in my body, I have a sensor that gets my current heart rate. And every time my body is connected to Cloud IoT Core, and it sends data to InfluxDB the same way. So if I click on my Grafana instance, it should work, and we should be able to see my actual heart rate in real time. So okay, an actual human is usually having a heart rate at 80 beats per minute. But you know, I'm in front of you, I'm very stressed, I'm doing a live demo, it didn't work properly. So you can see here, for instance, it was, almost just before the talk was going to start. And here, I guess it was when it didn't work properly, like my live demo. So I was like...
And where do you get a sensor?
I actually have a sensor here.
Inside?
It's actually possible. It's actually possible. You can do whatever you like. So here I connected my body. I will try to remove it.
Can you show us?
Yeah, sure.
No, because it's interesting.
It's for sports people actually. It's like just
yourself or you bought it?
I bought it. And since it's a Bluetooth peripheral, so you can just connect it. So I created a web Bluetooth static web page. So it's using web Bluetooth APIs, and then it directs my heart rate. So it will be soon to 0 because I just disconnected to Node.js server locally, and my Node.js server in my machine is connected to Cloud IoT Core. So my machine, this was connecting to my machine, and this was sending data to Cloud IoT Core. Okay, but we're not over yet. Let's stop that. You know, you can connect anything to the internet. You can connect microcontroller, devices, your own body. You can plug chips inside your own body if you want. It's possible. Yeah, but, you know, earlier we created that, and that's a little ugly because, you know, you have lots of wires and stuff, and it's not that good. And earlier I showed you about FreeZing. FreeZing, it's a tool where you just have to drag and drop components, and you can just do the wiring. But what's good with FreeZing is you have actually a PCB tab here, and when you click on it, it generates a PCB diagram for you. So it generates the same as you saw. So this is the microcontroller platform, this is the sensor, those are the wiring, and it generates a PCB for you. What you can do then, you can just click on this button, export for PCB, and it will generate a zip file. So it will generate a zip file, and then you can use any kind of services from the internet that prints PCBs for you. So I use PCBWay, for instance, and I just printed my own PCB. So the result is like that. So it prints a PCB like that, and it cost me $1 to print the PCB. So if you want to go from an ugly prototyping platform to a production platform, you can use FreeZing because it's for beginners. You export the PCB, then you use a website to print it. I print 5, it cost me $5 plus shipping fees. And here I have my PCB, and it's much better now because I can just take my microcontroller platform, and I can place it directly onto my PCB. I can take my temperature sensor and do the same. And now I switch from this to this in just with $1. And this is much better because you see it's like production ready. You can just place it in your home. It's much better. But you know, you cannot just place this in your home and let it run, and then you will have your temperature in your home, and it will be good. But it's not enough. What you could do now is you can create your 3D printed cases. So nowadays it's very easy to create 3D printed cases. You can use, for instance, Fusion 360, which is a tool from Autodesk, which is free for makers. So if you want to do it for your own, for yourself, you can just ask for a license, and they will give you a license for free. So it's actually what I did, and I use that software. So it's a little slow to start, but it's a software that helps you modelize things in 3D, and then you can export it and print those in 3D. Let's try to see if I have an example. Okay, let's wait until Fusion starts. So I actually created this, which is a case for my platform, and this is the top part. So if you want to see the result, I 3D printed it, and it looks like that. So it's I have my case, and what's good with that is now I can just place everything inside. It's much better. I can just close it, leave it in my home. I just add a little square here for the USB cable, and I place it in my home. And it didn't cost me that much, and it was actually easy to do. If you want to know how to do that, so okay, here you see Autodesk Fusion. So we will take the top layer. You do like that. Okay, we can just create a sketch. So we will create a sketch here. And we want to create a rectangle. So you just take your rectangle, you click here. Let's say we have a 60 rectangle over 120, so 6 cm, 120 cm. It creates a sketch. So you just draw a rectangle like it's like, it's very flat. But what you can do is you can just extrude it, and it will give it some 3D. So let's say we want a 60 millimeters height, so you extrude it, and then now you have your square. What you can do now is you can just create a shell. So you click on create a shell, like that, and you have your shell. This is not very beautiful, so you can just select these parts, and you can fillet it to have like rounded corners. So it will be a little more beautiful. And of course, if you want to create like a hole for the USB, you have to do again. So you create a sketch. Let's create a sketch here. We will create a rectangle again. We center the rectangle. We will want a rectangle here. Let's say it's like that. So it's not very centered, but that's not a big deal. You do that, and you will extrude it again, but you will extrude it from the other side. So here you will extrude it like that, and it will do that. So you can see how easy it is to create 3D boxes. And then you can just take your body and right-click and save it as STL. Once it's saved as STL, you can use any websites you want, 3D printed website, to print that in 3D for you. So if you want to see how I did, so I created some squares like that. I created exactly the same way I show you. So I did like that. I created two bodies, one for the cover, top and bottom. So it's exactly the same. And then I 3D printed it, so it's just a time lapse. I actually bought a 3D printer. It cost me $250, but you can also go to a maker lab, or you can just use websites directly. So I 3D printed everything, and now I have my box. So what I want to tell you in this talk is that nowadays we are really lucky, because we live at a time where it's very accessible for everyone to create your own devices for a reasonable price from yourself So you can write code for the microcontroller. We wrote some code for the microcontroller. You can create your PCB. You can connect those together. You can create your box. You can 3D print everything. So nowadays, creating a full product from scratch is accessible for every one of us. So we are really lucky because for a very cheap price, we can create stuff, and that's good. So here I just show you a live demo, and well, it almost works well. And does it still work? Yeah, you can see it's still increasing. So if you want to do everything you saw today at your own pace, you can go to this website, and then you will find many different articles telling you everything you saw today. So you can just read those articles, and you can just consult those and do the same at your own pace. So here, it will be exactly the same as what you saw. So how you connect your microcontroller, or you create your case, or you connect your microcontroller to the Google Cloud Platform. And if you don't want to use the Google Cloud Platform and you want to use your own server or a Raspberry Pi in your home, here is an article telling you how you can do that. So once again, if you're curious about that, feel free to read those articles here that will tell you everything you saw today, so you can do it at your own pace. If you have some questions, I will be happy to answer today. Any questions?
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Question?
Yeah.
Do you have any specific about debugging when you write in code for
Arduino?
Yeah.
Yeah. How can you debug it?
Yeah.
Actually, with the Arduino IDE, you cannot, like they've been working on it for a long time, but it's still not released yet. But you can use Visual Studio Code, which is another IDE. Platform I/O. Platform I/O is an extension of Visual Studio Code, and you can just add some breakpoints the same way on any IDE. So you can add, debug using breakpoints if you want easily.
So the board itself should support debugging this?
Should support?
Yes.
It should support what?
The board itself should support debugging?
Yeah, but it does.
Even nano?
Yeah, completely. I actually don't know the implementation. I don't know how it's made, but I know actually it's possible. So I don't know how it's made under the hood, but it's possible.
Okay. I saw you talk about detecting aliens, reptiloids.
Yeah.
And the title was like detecting and exterminating. Can you show this? It's very interesting. Did you
actually
exterminate many reptiloids since then?
Actually, before there was a product from Google that was called Android Things. It was a way to do IoT with Android. And to show that it works, what I did is I actually used some machine learning to use inference, like Inception V3 model, to detect humans from reptilians. So you can see with TensorFlow, it has some classifier, and if you provide some images, it can tell you if it's a human or if it's a reptile or a reptilian. So with TensorFlow, you can have some classifying stuff, and here it's a reptile. Oh, sorry. And this is obviously a reptilian. And this is a reptilian. Obama obviously is a reptilian. We all know about that. And this is a famous Android developer, but he's a reptilian. So, and actually, after what you could do, but you can do is many different ways. You can create, for instance, a flamethrower. So how you create a flamethrower, it's actually easy. You use what's called a servomotor. A servomotor is just a tool that moves its needle to a given angle. Then you use a bigger servomotor because it's much better. You use some inflammable spray and a candle. You plug everything together, and then when you press, You can just exterminate reptilians like that. So just you can create your own flamethrowers connected to the Google Cloud Platform. You can also create some chainsaws with LEDs and stuff. What's good with IoT is that it's very funny because you can just create your own devices, whether it's for fun or whether it's for useful stuff or accessibility. You can do a lot with IoT. So you can do whatever you want. This was another talk. But you can use machine learning, and you can also use machine learning on microcontrollers. So you can have TensorFlow on microcontrollers. If you want, it works well. Any other question? Yeah?
How do you power on this device? Do you have a battery? Or?
It actually has a USB, yeah. So you can connect it to USB to any kind of power source. And it also has some power lines. So you can just take some 2 lines and connect it the same way. Usually me, what I do is I don't want to bother too much. So I just use the USB for power directly. And once again, so this is actually a prototyping platform. The ESP32 actually is this part. So it's just that. So the ESP, you can just buy the ESP like that. Here you can see the serial, the multiple input-output interfaces. It's as small as that. And if you want to do something for production, you just buy that part, you flash it to your own board, you solder it to your own custom board, and then you will add any kind of way you like for power. But this is very good because you can buy a lot for very cheap. It's very small, and it has the power of a computer from the 90s, so for a very reasonable price. So you can connect any power source you like.